Ladies and gentlemen, our program will now begin. Please welcome the CEO of the Churchill Club, Karen Tucker.
Thank you so much. You are very, very kind. It's great to see everyone. Thank you for coming out for this program, which is called The Social Transformation of Business, the Future of Rising Customer Demands and ROI. The goal here is to explore new trends, strategies, and implications for future social media and digital platforms in customer communities and relationships. Here to weigh in are George Colony, CEO, Forrester Research, Rob Tarkoff, CEO, Lithium, Ben-Zur, social media leader at Dropbox, and Shiv Singh, SVP and Global Head, Digital and Marketing Transformation at Visa. And to lead them in conversation is legendary author, speaker, and advisor, Geoffrey Moore. Welcome our speakers. Not quite yet. Later, you will have the opportunity to participate in the conversation as well during audience Q&A. We wish to acknowledge Lithium, in particular Eddie McGraw, for their invaluable partnership in enabling this program. Thank you. A special welcome to our new guests in the audience. Thousands of other motivated leaders, like the people in this room, have attended these sessions over the past 3 decades at Churchill Club. And like most of us here, they too wish to access new thinking, ideas, and connections to gain an edge and help make the most out of the evolving and sometimes revolutionary technologies that represent our businesses and our lives. With every program, we seek to provide you with new insights and things that are not readily available elsewhere on the timeliest topics of the day. Rather than pitching, we ask our speakers to contribute their up-to-the-minute points of view and to leave you with actionable insights and takeaways. We are very proud to serve our members, 7,500 strong, and we do invite you to join and participate. churchillclub.org. If you are tweeting, please use the hashtag Churchill Club, and you'll see other Twitter pointers in your programs. And now, let's give our warmest welcome to Geoffrey and our speakers. I'll just get out of the way here.
George, you'll be next.
We'll walk around.
And then Rob.
Thank you.
You want your second one in the middle?
Go ahead.
Shani, if you'll sit next to Rob. George, if you'll sit next to
Thank you very much.
Shiv, play the. There we go. All right. Wow, great to be here as always. This is a wonderful experience. So I'm going to kick this thing off. You know, I've been sort of dining out over the last 3 or 4 years around a chalk talk around disruptive innovation. And the 5 disruptive innovations that we end up talking about over and over again are cloud, mobile, social, data science, and Internet of Things. And the way the conversation goes, I think cloud and mobile, people go, yeah, duh, I mean, we got that. It's still changing, by the way. It's still requiring a huge amount of adaptation. But I don't think people are confused about either cloud or mobile. Internet of Things and data science, it's still far enough away that people are going, yeah, we don't actually do it yet, but you know, I can see that this is going to work, and it's obvious that the Google guys and Facebook and Amazon have got a lot of traction here, and it's very important. Social kind of creates a little bit of a pause with people. And the conversation reminds me of 3rd graders talking about sex. So, you know, they want to seem knowledgeable. They know it's important, but they're not quite sure how it works. So tonight we have 4 Dr. Ruths with us to explain social. and I'm going to start with George. I'm going to kind of work my way down the panel. I'm going to kind of ask a series of questions just to kind of get the conversation going. And then at some point, the best questions always come from you. So please be thinking about that going forward. But George and I had a chance to talk earlier this week. And just maybe to kick this off, because I'm not sure everybody knows, Forrester, you know, well-known brand in our industry for how many years?
32.
32 years. But you guys have changed direction recently, so why don't you talk just a little bit about that?
So Forrester has, in the last 2 years, we've redirected ourselves toward the customer. And very simply stated, the way we help companies like Visa is to, number one, help them understand their changing customer. We have a large data business worldwide, including urban India, urban China. So number one, help our clients understand those customers. And as we've looked at our data over the last 5 years, what we're observing is that the customer is gaining power over institutions, be they corporations or be they governments, and that power is being driven primarily by technology. And so we are entering a period, this is, that we did not coin this term, but we share this term. We're entering a period that we call the age of the customer, where that power will continue to move toward the consumer, B2B or B2C. So number one, we help our clients understand the customers and the incredible dynamism there. Two, we help CMOs and their staffs understand, we help them win those those impetuous customers. And then number three, we're working with the CIO and the CIO staffs, not on IT. IT is about the internals of a company, but rather on what we call business technology, which are the systems, processes, and technologies to win, serve, and retain customers.
So you're right in the middle of this whole social thing is right in the middle.
Right in the middle. And the CIO, just that last point, the CIO of the companies who are truly customer obsessed, because that's what Forrester is about now, we find those CIOs are really running those two agendas. They're running a great IT agenda, but they're also running and developing a BT agenda, the cool technology to satisfy those customers. So that's who we've become over the last several years.
Which feels very much.
So we're really about helping companies become customer obsessed.
Cool.
Yep.
So in the middle of that, so the competition for the scarce resource of the customer's attention and the customer's dollar and the customer's loyalty. We've been talking about social media for a while. I'm the adoption lifecycle guy. So where do you think social media is in the adoption lifecycle? Are we early market? Have we crossed the chasm? Are we in niche markets? Are we in the tornado? Where are we, do you think?
So I'm really bad at social media. These guys will be a lot better at it.
Okay.
As we look at the best practices in companies so to back up here, Forrester has an index called the Customer Experience Index. And the CXI measures the customer experience at 1,000 brands worldwide. In the US, about a third in the US, third in Europe, and third in Asia. And so we know who's really good at customer experience and really great with customers. We know the ones who are really bad at customer experience. And truthfully, we don't find a lot of social in the companies that do really well. If you look at the customer obsessed operating model, social is not really a big piece of that. So I'd love to say, wow, you've got to have a great social strategy, and maybe you guys can enlighten us on this. But it is, as far as winning, retaining, and serving those customers, it's an element of it, but it's not a central element.
So who are to give us a sense of who, like the five of the top 10 people in your index would be companies like?
So Amazon is number one, believe it or not, in the UK, and also number one in Germany.
Yep.
Excuse me, number one in the UK and France.
Yep.
Of the 5 top in the US, and by the way, we run this index every 6 months. And the 5 top in the US is kind of unbelievable, but 4 of them are USAA.
So
4 of them are USAA of top 5. The top credit card, sorry, is not Visa, but you guys are about.
Doesn't matter.
You're about in the middle.
It's all right. We don't have to pander to it.
I'll get my turn to talk.
Give it a shot. He'll get his shot.
warming up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But this is fascinating,
Yeah.
and it helps for everybody. The last index wave that we ran, of the top companies, 5 of them dropped out of the top down into the second tier, and 46 dropped down. Only 5 are rising in the index. So it's a point out that's very critical to all of us. The customer expectations are will continually increase. Yeah. They're not going to moderate. They're not going to flatten. They're simply going to increase. So this is not something you can fix and be done with it. This is a, and I don't want to overstate this and be too dramatic, but this is an existential moment for companies. In my entire business career, I've been in business as long as you have been.
Yep.
There's been one big growth company, and that's been Walmart. Walmart in January announced they're closing 300 stores. That blew my mind. United Airlines, number 2 in the United States, was passed by Delta. We all hated Delta 5 years ago, but they went through a huge customer revelation there, driven by the CEO, and Delta has now passed United to become the number 2 in the United States. Those 2 moments for me demonstrated this existential period we're about to go into, where companies will go out of business if they don't get the customer right. That's how crazy it's going to get.
So I was going to ask you what's some of the things you've learned in the last year that we didn't know before, but I think this existential moment, that's a fairly new insight.
Yeah.
Let me ask a different question. So in terms of misconceptions, what are we missing? I mean, as you're talking with your clients, you're continually trying to give them a lens to see themselves through or a mirror to see themselves in. What is it that's hard for them to see? What are we continually thinking we're getting right, but we're not getting it right?
Yeah. So we are studying the top companies, as you might imagine. There has to be a customer experience advocate on the executive team. And this can't be somebody who's about to retire, their last gig.
You mean the way we did with quality?
Bingo,
Sorry,
exactly.
sorry, go ahead,
this is somebody who really has juice
Yeah.
and is on the executive team. It can't be someone who reports to CMO. So we're finding in those companies, there's somebody on the executive team who does that. I was at CIBC Bank in Toronto recently with the CEO, and I said, what are your two objectives here? He said, one, want to grow. Every company says that. He said, the second objective is to improve our customer experience. I said, any other objectives? He said, no, that's it. So it has to be very high in the priority list.
And so do we have good metrics for that? I mean, I want a better experience.
If you go to Europe, Net Promoter, NPS is very common.
Yep.
The Customer Experience Index that Forrester sells is becoming, in certain companies, is being used.
Got it.
By the way, but that's an important one, Geoffrey. You can't do this without a metric. And typically that metric should be tied to the compensation of the executive team around customer experience. And in the high-performing CXI companies, that is true.
And the CIO has to provide the information stream that feeds that metric, I would think. You can't, I guess you could do surveys. Let me ask you, so what percent, is the CIO key to feeding creating that data feed or no? Maybe
usually, it would be a component, but usually it's a third party.
Usually it's a third party kind of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, last question before I'm going to move down to Rob. And I'm going to ask everybody this question. It's like, in the next 12 to 24 months, what do you think, what is the change you're anticipating or you're going to keep your eye out for in the next 12 to 24 months? You say, wow, this is the thing we got to watch. And maybe it hasn't gotten to the tipping point yet, but this is what we're going to keep an eye on.
I would say that now I have a hammer in my hand about called customer obsession. So everything looks like a nail to me. I can explain Donald Trump via this customer obsession idea. And here's how this goes.
How's his NPS? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good today, right, in New York.
He won. Yeah. But here's the deal. The Republican Party believed it could control its constituency. But Donald Trump arrived and said, in fact, I am going to connect to these customers via social. I'm going to bypass the elite New York Times, Wall Street Journal, et cetera, and that populace has now gained power. So we can say, I don't really care what the head of the Republican Party wants me to do. I'm going to go for this guy, even though he's not accepted by the Republican Party. So you can even see this power in the populace, in the votes. And by the way, and I'll also explain Apple's fight with the FBI. Why did Tim Cook dig in his heels on that one? It's because he understands that there's nothing more important to Apple than the customer, that he has to protect the customer, that privacy is now his product, and his product is now privacy. And he has to, if he doesn't do that, he will not have a customer base in the future.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think, so what I'm looking for in the next 12, 24 months is more shocks like this. We're going to have more shocks. And it's being driven by this power of the customer. And
my sense of that shock is that it's an over the top. I mean, I remember how shocked the cellular guys were when Apple went over the top, and then the network guys, the Google went over the top.
Right.
Trump, you just described, went over the top.
Same thing.
Yeah. Kind of interesting play.
So some would argue he's been over the top.
Well, his top actually combs over. It's a different.
Well, one last point.
Okay.
We've talked about digital disruption.
I'm not a big Trump fan, just in case you hadn't guessed. Go ahead.
We've talked about digital disruption for years, but what Forrester's now observing is that consumers, I'll just talk about consumers for a moment, are much more accepting of change and trying new things faster. We have a lot of research on this going back decades, but there's now a willingness to do this. So you can't have Uber without someone who's going to use Uber and is going to accept Uber quickly. So we've had digital disruption, but now we have, I don't want to just coin a stupid term, but the disruptive customer. And that those two together, incredibly powerful force.
Right. So yeah, in terms of the adoption life cycle, it's further down than it does. The adoption life cycles in that model go very much more quickly.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Rob, I want to turn to you. Just in full disclosure, Rob's the CEO of a company called Lithium. He's got a great board, except for one member who's also the moderator. So if I'm a little light on Rob, just understand, good CEOs are hard to
It'll
find.
be the first time you've been light on.
Well, that's true, but it's in public. I want people to. Anyway, so Rob, Lithium just commissioned a study on social media and digital marketing. How come? What were you trying to do?
So first, for those of you who don't know us that well, Lithium provides a software platform that essentially hosts all the conversations going on around a brand's customers. So that can take place on social media, on their own communities, on their websites, in-app. And we analyze all those trends. And so we got about 120 million monthly unique users coming across our network, which would make us in the top 10 websites in the world. So one of the things we wanted to see is, okay, we have all this conversational velocity. We have software that people are using. How good is the practice side of this? Are people doing the right things to drive their business forward? And I'll just pick on one thing that George has said about the top companies not being social. And you mentioned USA, who's one of our biggest customers.
I'm not saying the word social. I'm just saying it wasn't a major component. It was a component, but not a major component.
Okay, well, it's Rob's turn.
So, so it depends, of course, how you define major. But one of the things that USA and other companies who are doing this well have done is embedded social and customer interaction at the core of their product. So the idea that conversations, ideas, co-creation is at the core of what they do, to me, is inherently incorporating social into the core of your product. It may not be that traditionally how we think of social marketing, push marketing, broadcast, buying ads on Twitter or Facebook or others is at the core, but incorporating conversation, and Satya Nadella says it really well. It's really the idea of conversation as a platform. Incorporating that into your business is what really makes people well. So this study, which I think is available to all of you, went across 8 different industries, 85 brands, 400 different touch points. And we looked at all the cross-social and community interaction. We wanted to see how are people doing with a couple of key things. One is, have people moved from broadcast to engagement? Are people really engaging with their customers? Is there this idea that there's a person on the other end of this interaction who wants to not just hear from me, but others like themselves? So how are they doing around interaction? How are we doing on visual storytelling? So that's a big one. Are we just posting random images, or are we actually using imagery and video as part of telling a story about a brand experience and allowing others to contribute to that? Are we understanding contextually which network is right for which purpose, right? There's certain things you want to do on Twitter. That's sort of morphing more to the live event world. There's certain things we want to do on Facebook. There's certain things we want to do on Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, others. So how sophisticated are people with doing all this? And unfortunately, the results aren't good.
What were the results?
The results are that of the brands, again, 8 industries, 85 top brands, 400 different touch points, less than 2% of the brands in our study are responding to posts that people are making back to a brand. That can be Facebook, Twitter, other areas. So 2% of overall are actually in a serious way interacting with brands. And of the ones that are doing it well, they actually correspond pretty tightly in our survey to companies that are doing well. Think about Microsoft. They've recently doubled their market cap through Satya's leadership, have brought community and social to the core of this redefinition process that he's going through. The openness of Microsoft is very much about this consistent customer interaction across platforms. Sephora, very successful company in the beauty business, really finding ways to incorporate their high-value customers in the conversation about beauty, going beyond Sephora products. So, and others. So some people are doing it really well, but most are doing it poorly.
So it's interesting that you're talking about Sephora and Microsoft and maybe USA as well, and embedding social in their business model. Is this a re-engineering that goes beyond marketing then? I mean, I'm actually re-engineering my offer to become more digitally engaging? What's going on?
So it's one of the things I love about the research that Forrester is doing now on the age of the customer is it's breaking down the silos, traditional silos between marketing, service, all these things that were vertically integrated, and there was a one-to-one connection between that department and that system or the customer. So in this context, I'm a customer service customer. In this customer context, I'm a customer that's supposed to be marketed to. That's not how it exists. People want conversation with brands that crosses all these different traditional silos. And I think thinking about it that way, the top brands are really re-engineering the relationship with the customer. And social is just a means to do that. Community is just a platform to manage that. It's not another silo. It's a way of connecting customers to each other as well as to the brand. And that's just a different way of thinking about it.
So we were talking earlier tonight about, the Mark Zuckerberg's announcement this week about the Messenger bot. And bots is like the new, your buzzword for this year is bot. So whatever you want to say, we have a bot, you'll be fine. So how does but the bot clearly is an important phenomenon. How do you relate the bot to social, or does it relate to social?
So I think it's very central to what's going on right now. The cynical side of me thinks of the bot as a customer service experience with less personality than a customer service person, which is almost impossible to conceive of. But the positive side of it is that it fits in the context of this overall conversation economy, right? In that people that are doing this well, and I think this is true with Dropbox and Visa as well, customers that are, brands that are doing this well are thinking of the customer interaction as a conversation. There are times where a chatbot makes sense. If I want an instantaneous AI-driven experience, what's the weather? Can I order the tickets? Can it make sense? You can mine, and through big data analytics today and natural language algorithms, you can mine data to get to the right answer. But there's a big part of the experience that's contextual, that is about, I want to find other people like me who had an experience like I want to have before I'm going to make a decision to buy the product. How do I engage with a brand to find that? I don't just want to be shouted to. I don't want you to tell me what the brand experience is. I want to be in conversation in the context of this. And I think chatbots, there is a place for them. I mean, again, 60, 70% of customer service organizations deal with repetitive questions. So why do you need an agent to pick up the phone and read a script? I can use a dedicated application for that. But there's another big part of it that's about defining the experience of the brand with the customer, and that's where I think you have to go beyond the bot.
So last question, then I'm going to ask you about that 12 to 24. Why do you think, nothing you're saying says to me, oh my God, I never really thought of people as being people. So I got it. But why do companies struggle so much with social? What are we getting wrong? What's causing us to continually not get over this hump?
Yeah.
You said 2%.
So I think your 3-year-old or third grade description of having that chat, having been through that with my 3 teenagers, that's a good description because people are afraid of doing it wrong. Right? It's hard to talk about the customer and changing your paradigm for dealing with the customer. And so you see this stuff that comes out from Forrester about age of the customer, and everybody says, yes, I got to go do that. But oh my God, how do I do that? I have to change massive systems. I know how to do a media buy. I know how to think about Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn as destination sites that I publish to, but I don't understand how to host a conversation and what role do I play? And certain people are in certain networks for certain reasons, and how do I treat that? And certain people just complain for the sake of complaining, and I don't have to listen to them, but is that okay to do? And certain people are more influential, and I know that based upon their rank. So there's all these things that, although we understand people are people, when it comes to the traditional institutions that we've used to market, sell, and service, they don't fit. And so there's this big transformation that's going on in software, in practices, in metrics, all these things that I think is just at the very early stages.
Are you going to hold a community for community managers so that we can all kind of have this sort of therapy thing that we
Well, it's actually funny you say that. I'll put in the plug since we helped sponsor this event. June 8th to 10th in
Yep.
San Francisco
Yep.
is the Link
Okay.
conference, and it's the huge meeting of community experts, yes.
Okay, but, there's Blake.
Many of whom are here.
So can I,
Yeah, George, jump in. I'm gonna-
Rob just sparked a thought.
Yep.
So I got some of the top analysts at Forrester together recently, and I said, what's different about the top CXI companies doing this well? And I got a really surprising answer, and kind of what Rob said. He said, there's a lack of fear in those companies. It's fear. They will try. They will fail. Look at what Bezos has done. Bezos has failed so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Steve Jobs, I had to invoke that name
Yeah, right,
before
right.
somebody else did.
Sure, of course.
But if you look at what he did, he had no fear. That's not going to happen at Visa, I don't think. But there has to be less.
I don't know.
fear.
I would disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
So, well, I don't know if I'm
No,
breaking the order.
jump in.
I think we can
jump
go
in,
out of
jump
order.
in. Jump in. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so-
Chaos at this point. So.
Yeah. So, so in defense of Visa, especially as I wear my Visa, very proudly. Look, we're a business that was established in the 1960s, where where we took what it was an entire global economy driven by cash, and actually made it technology driven through payments. What was fascinating about that is our founder, Dee Hock, and we were just talking about this, in the 1960s, he said currency should be digital. We talk about Bitcoin today, but he introduced that thought. Over the last 30 years, Visa, as have a few others, have built these amazing, powerful global payment networks that connect people around the world. That's a massive thing, works extremely well in the physical world. What's interesting, though, and I think it's just as brave and just as challenging as any other company out there or any Apple that maybe is, in the last year, we've taken this amazingly powerful payment network. It's one of the most, if not the most, digital networks, secure digital networks in the world, and we've opened it up to enable outside people to come in and create new products and services on top of it. Now think about that. This is not just another company opening up its APIs. We're talking about all of your money and how you interact with merchants and how they interact with banks and opening up via APIs.
And you guys have been one of the two great
That I would say is a transformative thing.
Totally.
And doing it in a way when we still have an existing business model, that's massively successful. So, I speak on behalf of Visa, but it's really credit to our CEO. And I think that's a greater and a harder challenge than to do something, and I'm going to lose every friend I have in this room with my next comment, than what Steve Jobs was doing back in 1998 when Apple was $13 a share, and it was easy to be brave, because if he wasn't brave, there would be no company the next morning. So just,
I think
if I
Shiv's
may
making
humbly
an important
disagree.
point, which is that when you have a ton to lose, it is harder to have no fear when you have something big to lose. And Visa is a walled garden, or what used to be a walled garden, as was MasterCard, as was American Express. The kind of courage you're talking about. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to go back to Shani now, because I want to get back. Both Shani and Singh and Shiv are practitioners. So we're now in the world of, okay, we're using this stuff, and I wanted to get a sense of what it felt like to be in the middle of using the tool set and being in the middle of trying to get things done in a world that I think both George and Rob have characterized as complex and somewhat conflicted, but clearly under a huge imperative to act. So should you talk a little bit about Dropbox and kind of how your world's also changed a little bit, refocusing of late? We'll talk a little bit about that and then how social media is playing a role there.
Sure. Before I start, how many know that Dropbox is a different company than Box? Fabulous. Just wanted to level set the playing field here for myself. Do you mind if I ask more questions?
Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
The other thing that would help me answer this question really well is, on a scale of 1 to 3, how advanced is your social media at your company, where 3 is you have a huge team and you totally use Snapchat, and 1 is you've never heard of Twitter. So let's say, raise your hand if you're 1. Honesty, and I like it. 2?
Yeah?
3? Oh.
Okay, all right, okay.
Well, okay then.
Okay, go for it.
So for Dropbox, Dropbox started out as sort of one of the great growth hackers. They figured out how to incentivize people to invite their friends. So it was really based on word of mouth, and social lent itself to that. Dropbox, when I first came onto Dropbox, we had about 3 million fans on Twitter, and I was like, how the heck did we do this? And I looked into it, and it turned out that following our Twitter handle was one of the ways that people could earn free space. So we got a ton of people because they wanted to be incentivized with something. The shift that's happening in the company and the shift that's happening in social as a result is we're moving a little bit away from come one, come all, we'll take whoever who wants free space, and moving into having Dropbox be more of a tool to help people get work done. It's not about just, I think somebody here mentioned, it's not just a place to throw your stuff like a garbage can. It's more about use Dropbox because you can collaborate on your files, you can create files, you can work with people across the world instantly, you can back up your files and use them on every device. And so that shift to a more purposeful using of Dropbox is being reflected in social in that we're not just trying to spam everybody, we want to be very selective. And so our storytelling is selective. We care about modern creative thinkers, people who are working in an office or people who use computers, and that means a lot of advertising. So whereas it used to be we're giving something away for free, now we're paying so that we can make sure we talk to the right people with the right message at the right time.
Are you paying on social sites? I mean, how if you took your advertising budget, you're paid, where are you spending it?
So my social budget or the overall marketing
I think the advertising budget, first, I realize that it may not, maybe it's not your area, but you just said we're doing a lot of advertising now. What I'm trying to get is, are you advertising on traditional media, or are you advertising on digital media?
So Dropbox has iterations in its spend. There was a big campaign last year where we did out of home. You might have seen there were some billboards in San Francisco. There were billboards in New York. We've also done display advertising. We've done a lot of digital. And for social specifically, what we've seen is that we can be the most selective and the most targeted. So if all you want is for people to consume a video, put it everywhere. Who cares? If you want people to understand something about your product, so for Dropbox, we know that people can just throw stuff in there, but we want them to know that they can also share a link to a file and put a password on it. So for that kind of information, we use social spend because we can say, I want to target people in this age group, in this country, that speak this language, that work at these companies, that are this level of seniority, and have been this active on this site. Or even better, we can say, I want to take everybody who's visited Dropbox.com but maybe never signed in, and I want to retarget those people when they're on Facebook with this message about why they should sign up.
So how are the tools, I mean, as you're taking on this new technology, on these new challenges, there's a bunch of people offering a lot of tools. What would you say, how would you characterize the state of the art? Oh yeah, well, nice man, nice man.
Small set ourselves.
But I mean, what's the state of the art right now? Do you feel like the tool, on 1 to 10 of maturity level, I mean, where are we with the technologies?
I would say that the tools change every 3 months. And there's a new leader every 3 months, which is great because then if you're in an analyst firm, you can create a new great report every 6 months and there's new stuff to share.
That's good.
And
Telling
so,
it like it is.
Yeah, sorry, that's my thing. So it's sort of like we make a decision at one point in the year and we open the PO for 1 year, and then at the renewal point, we have to completely audit the landscape again. So there are new tools for monitoring, there are new tools for setting up your ads, there are new tools for engaging with users, and there are new tools for publishing. And it changes all the time. We pick some that we like we use Sysomos for our listening, and it fits within our workflow. But there are a lot of other tools that are great. We use, kind of, like every company's social program has an impetus. Yeah. So Dell, it was like the laptop that caught on fire and they didn't know how to handle it and blah, blah, blah.
United, we break guitars.
We break guitars, exactly. So Dropbox had a moment like that a few years ago where they were making some standard maintenance on the product, but it ended up resulting in some downtime.
All of China. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It actually impacted every single user everywhere. And there was no formal social media team at that time. And so what they ended up doing was getting every single employee to volunteer and get on this tool, which is called Spark Central. And they would train them up, give them the kind of form responses to people, and just started responding to every single user that they could. And they had 24-hour coverage. People just volunteered. And we ended up creating this group of people that are called the social reservists. And it's an army of folks that we activate whenever there's something really terrible or something really great. Because our team is really only 3 people globally, full time. So, did anybody ever use Mailbox? I'm sorry. Sorry. If you didn't know, Mailbox was an email app that Dropbox acquired, and then recently we had to shut down because it didn't really align with where the company was going. But the people who use Mailbox 50,000 times a day. They love Mailbox. So that was a very outspoken and an emotional group of people, and so we set up the social reservists for the day that we announced it and the day that we shut the product down. And we made sure to respond to every single person that we could in a very human and authentic way. And the result was great. We went from people being like, F you, Dropbox, why would you do this to me? To, I get it, I understand, business is hard, but appreciate you guys. And it was like that. It was instantaneous. Wow. And by having the social reservists, it gave us a chance to give people in other parts of the company, from engineering to finance, and let them see, like, this is the impact of the work you're doing. It's so important. It's so great.
That's cool.
And people are really emotional about your product.
Let me, one of the questions in terms of visibility, we talk a lot about engagement. Engagement's another one. Bot and engagement may be the two. That'll be your buzzword quota. But how do you detect engagement? How do you make engagement visible to the team or to the what's your sensing system, and how does that work?
So we have a couple of levers that we use at Dropbox. So it really depends on your audience, right? Like, how do you convince anybody of anything? It depends on who that person is. Know your audience. We have a monthly report that we do that tells people metrics. This is the impact of the stuff that we've published. Like, this is the piece of content that people like the most. And then we have another report where we look at almost every single app mention of Dropbox and at Dropbox Support and at Dropbox Business, and we say, these are the features that people are asking for, these are the issues that people are having, these are the things that people love, and this is the random stuff that people are telling us that we want to share with you. And we send that report to a really wide group of people, including our engineering, our product marketing, and anybody who wants to see it is welcome to join the distribution. And it's so funny because now when somebody sees a complaint about the thing they're working on, they email us immediately. And they're like, I don't know if you know this, but we're working on a feature update for that. That's going to be going out soon, so people shouldn't be mad about it. And it's like, you know, what our job is just to tell you what people are saying. Yeah. And we will try to, as soon as that product comes out, we'll be happy to tell this person. But in the meantime, this is I'm just a mouthpiece. I'm just sharing back what people are saying about us. And so for me, I like that report the best because it's actionable, it's real. And then I think the other side is more from an execution standpoint. It's important for us to understand what content resonates. And we measure resonance based off of a ratio from the number of people who have seen it, which we calculate by the impressions which are given to us from the platform. How many of those people touched the content? Did they respond? Did they like it? Did they share it? Or did they click through on the URL that we shared?
So it feels to me like you are in pretty good control. I mean, the world's out of control all the time, but it feels like you really do have a pretty decent console of tools to work with. Is that fair, or what are you missing, or what's the part that you'd say, well, yes, Geoffrey, but?
Well, if you are reporting back to my management, I would say I've got perfect control and everything's fine.
Yeah, of course, yes, right.
There's nothing.
Or if he was on your board.
If he was on my board, yeah.
But just between the two of us.
Just between us chickens in this small room, and if we're periscoping everybody on the internet, I think some of the challenges are that there are so many mentions of the word Dropbox. Yes. Every time someone shares a Dropbox URL, when I'm searching for Dropbox, that shows up in there. And it's impossible for 3 human beings to read through all of that. So just figuring out how to parse all of the stuff that isn't necessarily directed at us through an app mention, but is just said out into the ether. And then I think Twitter is the easiest to do that, but then you have all these other platforms that aren't really searchable yet. Like, there are probably 1 million mentions of Dropbox on Snapchat yet, but we can't see that. Okay. And it's also visual, so we can't parse it yet. Got it. So that's something that I think about a lot when we're trying to mitigate crises. If I don't know what's happening, I can't prepare.
Right. The last question is, as you're looking ahead for the next 12 to 24 months, is there something that you anticipate, you're either hoping you're going to see or you expect to see in the next 12 to 24 months that would change your world?
I can share what I want, with the change that I want to make internally, and probably the change that will happen externally. For me, what I hope to do in terms of adding more sophistication to my program is I want to figure out how to make social be a part of each part in the funnel, so awareness, consideration, and conversion, and also partner with the teams that do that. Right now, we're really closely tied with the awareness part of the funnel, but I want to work with our conversion team and see, can we retarget the people that I've touched with my content to your landing page? And if so, which of the channels is the most effective, and which one should I throw a bunch of money at to fill the top of that funnel?
How much of your lead flow comes through social now?
So some of the top lead generators are SEM. And so we ran a pilot a couple years ago, or maybe even last year, where we were testing lead gen through social versus SEM. And SEM was just a much more efficient spend. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably different for every company, but for Dropbox, that was true. So for us, because of that, I don't think that it makes as much sense for me to send somebody directly to a conversion point. It's kind of like, take me out on a date first, show me a good time with a couple blog posts. That's what
These third graders are beginning to learn.
Yeah.
This is good. This is good.
But that's important, right? This is the female touch. When I'm talking to the third grader, I want to say, when someone loves someone else.
Yes, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I actually use the dating analogy a lot when I'm explaining social.
I feel I should give up my time to you. It's like,
the senator from Oklahoma has said.
it'll be more fun listening to you here than me.
Oh, Shiv, I got to put you on the spot now. Okay. So you made her. This is good. I'm going to actually.
Super patient. It's his turn.
I'll move it over to you. So I actually want to go back to a point you made, because you look at Visa and you say, look, it's like, well, when who was the guy that took over from Bill Walsh? George
Costanza.
Not George, whatever his name was, for the 49ers. Seifert. What his wife said to him is, George, don't screw this up, right? Because he had this incredible franchise. So that's the curse of a brand that's as powerful.
He won a Super Bowl, by the way.
Yeah, he did. He didn't screw it up. He didn't screw it up. But this notion of no fear when you have that thing. It says in your job title is Head of Digital and Marketing Transformation. So the word transformation is not a word for the fearful. So talk a little bit about what are you trying to, what is this transformation you're trying to get done now?
Yeah, so it starts with our CEO actually. I'm sort of one of many people who have fancy titles at Visa. But what Visa's on the journey of doing, and is incredibly serious about this, and credit to our CEO and our executive leadership team, I think we're making actually very good progress on it, is our CEO, he has said, and he said this a year and a half ago, that he wants Visa to have the same level of success in the digital world that we've had in the physical world. I said it's as simple as that, and we have to pivot right away to make that happen. And that was sort of he threw down the gauntlet to the entire organization. Since that time, and he did this 2 years ago, so if you just rewind to 2 years ago, we were all wondering, what would mobile payments look like?
Yeah.
What would be the future of just typing in your credit card details on a website and making a purchase? What would happen in a messaging environment? We had no clue. So organization-wide at Visa, what's happened since then are a few things. We launched this product called Visa Checkout, which is, we like to believe, is a quicker and faster way to pay than any other digital sort of wallet that exists out there. The second thing is we've opened up our core network, as I alluded to, via APIs, which is a huge and a really, really exciting thing. And if there are any of you who are developers in this room, I would strongly encourage you to check out the APIs. They're really cool, and you can do a lot of interesting things with. The third thing that we've done is we've partnered with all these major technology platforms. So, the Googles of the world and the Facebooks of the world and the Apples of the world. So the next time you're using Apple Pay or you're using Android Pay on your Samsung phone or your iPhone or whatever, know that behind it, what's powering it is actually the Visa network and technology that came out of Visa. Now, this is not old school. We're not a traditional business that's floundering its way into the digital world. These are really thoughtful, strategic efforts that, so far have been producing strong results, and that's credit to our leadership.
I
want to talk about bots for a quick second.
Say bots?
Yes.
Okay, go.
It's a future.
Go for it. Okay, the bots. Okay, go for it.
One last example, and this is a long journey, and who knows what's around the next corner. But an interesting thing is, if you were to use Facebook Messenger, you can make payments on Facebook Messenger. They just announced this. It had been beta tested for a while. Guess what? That's Visa Direct. It's a Visa product proposition that enables it. The point that I'm making is that as we think about transformation, in our industry, the payments industry, there's immense transformation going on. And we're massively committed to, especially for our clients who are the banks and the merchants, being at the forefront of it, taking all the equity and the learnings and the amazing tech genius from the physical world infrastructure and bringing it into digital.
So now I'm going to put the word marketing in front of transformation.
Yeah.
So how is your marketing changing?
Yeah. So there are a few things there. So I'll cover off the basics right away. So on average, around the world, half of our total advertising budget is spent in digital.
Okay.
And from what I understand, we're among the highest spenders in digital for brands that are not direct response brands.
Okay.
The second thing I would say is that of that half is in digital, the majority of that is actually in social particular. We happen to discover that on Facebook, people spend 35 to 40 minutes a day. It's the largest platform, highly engaged platform. We, in our experience, have actually seen it work immensely well for top of the funnel activities and bottom of the funnel activities. So like, during the World Cup last year, the Soccer World Cup, we were anchor sponsors. We rolled it out and used Facebook and their custom audience product in, I think, 15 or 18 different markets and doing real-time adjustments in really powerful ways. So that's, I'd say, on the basics front in terms of the advertising. But the larger change, and when we look at this through the lens of marketing, and we ask ourselves, what's the value of social and the importance and the difference between the customer experience and all of that, what I would say is the big learning for us, and what we take very seriously, is that our consumers have changed, and to respond to that change, or they've been disrupted, is we have to open up the brand. So what social has done is it's changed the expectations of the way consumers interact with brands and what they expect from brands and how we have to behave. The only way you can solve for that and address for that is opening up the making of your brand. So it's not just having strong, powerful conversations when you have everything polished and ready to go on the customer service end. That's incredibly important. I don't want to discount that. But it's also in opening up your brand. So 2 examples I'll share on that really quickly. One is, we were trying to understand the future of payments and how consumers would engage with our brand in the digital world. We partnered with 5 design schools around the world and ran these design hackathons to understand them how we should think about our brand in the future. Because they're the folks who understand customer experience better than anyone else, and they represent not just the Gen Y, but the Gen Z consumers. That's one example. The second example I'll share is we took our 5 biggest marketing challenges in the US and opened them up as briefs to the startup community and said, look, we think we're pretty smart, but we're not that smart. These are the problems we have. Here's the user research. Come back to us with platforms, ideas, solutions, whatever it may be. We had 500 startups participate in the first year. That was last year. This program just launched in China this year. We're going to be launching in Australia and LAC as well. So that's just an example of how we're transforming through the lens of marketing by opening up our brand and forming unconventional partnerships to shape the future with our consumers.
So I'm astonished because everything you're saying sounds terrific.
Using that word worries me.
Well, the reason I'm using astonished is because, I'm thinking about all the people who are of an older generation, the ARP right now, who are going, you can't do that. We've always done it the other way, and so I can get the idea that these. So how are you managing the social? Or are you managing the social transformation at Visa? How's the organizational dynamics getting through this change? Because you're moving an awful lot of cheese for an awful lot of people.
So, look, firstly, I don't understand how I look as youthful as I do.
Yes, that's true. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yes.
We all have our wounds and our battle scars, without a doubt. But in all seriousness, and it's not like I'm trying to get a raise or something, it truly starts from the top and the tone that's set by the CEO. And 2 months ago, I was having this one-on-one with our president, and And I was sort of complaining to him. I was saying, it's so hard to get things done sometimes. So convoluted. I barely understand our own structure. And then I pointed to one or two things I was able to do. But I said, I sort of feel that happened more because I broke the rules and got lucky there. And he said, dude, you're missing the point. The point is we're trying to find as many people we can who embody those values. So it starts at the top, and it's driven that way. And sure, there are mistakes, and sure but it's really the leadership. One last thing I'd say along those lines is our CEO joined 3 years ago, and in the last 3 years, his management team, the executive committee of 12 people, right or wrong, for better or for worse, all 12 have changed.
Yeah, yeah. That's true.
But so contrast the story Shiv and Shani just both told. One, a native digital business, 450, 500 million.
500 billion users.
Sorry.
Yes.
Half a billion
within
users.
50 million.
1/14 of the planet.
That's right.
Essentially.
Okay.
So think about that. A native digital business never had an analog strategy, a traditionally analog business going through creative destruction. And contrast that, both amazing stories about how Visa is going to be pulled forward into the future and how Dropbox is going to dominate with what already was a digitally native platform. Contrast that with our data. This is the exception. It's not the rule. So the question that I am asking is why? Forrester's already told us what the future of customer expectations is going to be. We all know it. We see people hanging out on these mediums where they want to interact, Facebook networks, messaging services. That's where they want the interaction to happen. It's not there. Brands aren't there. So that's the question that I would ask is these are two great practitioner stories, one of design-led thinking, creative destruction, another of Shani talks about social embedded into the company as if it was traditional print marketing in the 1980s and 90s as people thought about it, and yet it is so much the exception.
So George, as you're looking at this stuff, I mean, why do you think that it is the exception and not the rule?
Well, if you look at the customer experience index, the best companies are just okay. Nobody gets fantastic scores in our index. In most companies, I won't tell you who this is, but it's one of our large clients in the Boston area, large financial services company. I was with them, I was having lunch with a high-level executive there, and he said, our customer experience is great. And I said, well, do you know that 65% of your customers think your customer experience is either very poor or poor? And he was shocked by that. But that is more typical.
Is poor great? I mean, did I? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and like I said, in our last wave of research, the companies fell backward. They didn't go forward.
Okay, so in other words, they might have said
what we're seeing here is
Interesting.
is the expectation is going like this.
Yep.
And it's hard to do. It's very tough.
I think there's a difference between expectation and I will leave you and never come back to your company. Right? So again, if we're going back to the relationship analogy, yeah, I want you to call me every day. I want you to take me out all the time, and I want you to tell me you love me 5 times a day. But will I leave you if you don't do those things? Not necessarily. And so I think that's why a lot of companies maybe don't do it as quickly as they could, and because they're not seeing the downside as strongly as maybe we feel that might happen.
Yeah.
So a couple of secret sauces here. I'm going to say a word which is hard for everyone in this room, but what we observe in the great companies is it is culturally different in those companies. So there has to be a cultural change that's going on at Visa, I think, the way you're describing
Going at the
this.
top, yeah.
And it has to start right at the CEO level down, and that CEO has to emanate a new culture. And by the way, you can change the culture of companies. It can be done. It's hard to do, but it can be done. It has to be a cultural difference. That's one. 2 is talent. The Hartford Life Insurance Company, I was with the head of customer experience there, and he said, I asked him, what is it to be a great customer experience? He said, it's one word, empathy. We actually hire people now into the company who have empathy. I said, how do you test for that? We asked them one question in the interview. Do you know the name of the person who cleans your office?
Oh, wow.
That was one of their empathy questions.
Wow.
And I was telling Geoffrey that on the plane out yesterday, I was reading a lot of Forrester research on my iPad, and we have analysts in Asia who are studying customer experience in Asia. and they're studying customer experience in Japan. And there's a word in Japanese called omotenashi. And omotenashi, if you've ever been to Japan, is this amazing culture of service, which, number one, it is anticipatory. And they actually invoke the word, they use chess as their analogy, that they're trying to look 4 or 5 moves ahead of where the customer is going to go. 1, 2, it's very unobtrusive. It's not the waiter who comes up to your table and says, hey, how are you? It's very unobtrusive. And third, it's very, very distinctive and very unique. And that's it's called omotenashi, which is a culture which you find in Japan. By the way, a lot of the Japanese companies, they do this via heroes, but they don't really systematize it very well. So actually, the customer experience in Japan is not generally fantastic, even though that ethic is there.
The ethic is there.
But the culture is a big secret sauce.
So at this point, look, I've been asking questions because I love to, but I think the best questions always come from the room. And I think it's time now to do that. So are we doing microphone? Yeah, we have one microphone here and one microphone there. So if you can make them run as fast as possible, that's also an after-dinner entertainment. But somebody from like in the middle of the room should raise hand right here. Okay, it's number 1. Go ahead. Hold right behind you. The number 2? Okay, great. Okay, go ahead. Oh, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Start here. I'm with, my company is NetApp. My name's Richard Bliss. We're a Lithium customer. I handle executive social strategy. And a couple of comments. One is about USAA. I've been a member of USAA for 30 years. And for 30 years, they've built up a community, which makes it no surprise that when it comes to social, they would be extremely active because it's a trusted community that already exists. But the thing that I do is I deal with our executives in social, and it was mentioned that it starts at the top. But if you look at the top 50 most active social executives, almost all of them work for social companies, LinkedIn, Twitter, Huffington Post. When it comes to traditional companies, you almost never find one of those executives there. And I always get 3 reasons why an executive isn't on social. It's a waste of their time, they don't have any time, and they don't know how to do it. And so my question to the panel is that's my number 1 goal, is to help those executives learn how to overcome the fear of not knowing how to do it and then finding the time and the relevance of their voice. How important is it to have your executive active on social and showing an example to the rest of the company and out there being a voice of the company with their own voice, using the word I, where traditionally they hide behind a PR press release or a marketing brief. Right? Thank you.
So of the top 100 companies in the world, only 1 CEO is social. That's the top 100 companies in the world, so you're absolutely right about that. But I think the guy who said it right was Bill Marriott, and Bill must be in his 70s, maybe in his 80s, but he's very social, and he says, I am social because it's simply another way, it's a new way for me to relate, connect to, and communicate with my customers. So that I think is the reason why I don't think you could be a CEO of any large corporation 10 years from now unless you're social. It'll be impossible because a customer will want to know who you are, what you're thinking. That's 1. And 2, you will not be able to attract talent to your company unless you are social, as a social CEO. That's going to be an absolute requirement.
So just to build on that, I would say that at least, and I have a chapter in my book on this topic, so I've thought about it.
As a fellow author, could you say the title of your book, please?
Well, I'm sort of embarrassed to be on the stage with you because my book is so small. It's Social Media Marketing for Dummies.
Okay,
yeah.
Hey.
But I think it's important. I think it's important to think about the role of the business and what it's trying to accomplish. So if my CEO is spending a lot of time on Twitter, okay, you guys can throw me out of the room. I actually don't think it's a good use of his time. And the reason why I would say that is our business at Visa, we're fundamentally a B2B company. So our clients, the people who give us the biggest determinants on our revenue are the banks and the businesses that they give us, and then the macro economy. He makes himself available for his customers day and night. His customers don't happen to be on social media that much. We're a Fortune 100 brand, but yeah, he's one of those who's not on it. But I would feel stupid to try and convince him to be on social. So I think you have to look at it by industry, by state.
Good answers. Let's go to another question over here.
Thank you. I'm going to pursue that a little bit. My name is Peter Meyer. We've been on the stage together, so you know what book I've written. I focus on creating new markets and dominating them. My question for the two practitioners, can you link what you do to direct revenue contribution?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Would you
so-
give an example, please?
Yeah.
Sure. So, so as I said, there are two big factors that drive our revenue very directly. Our clients, and they strike these 3-5-year deals with us typically. And increasingly, the deal making becomes a race to the bottom in pricing. There are just 3 or 4 of us in the space. So then what differentiates us from everyone else? It's like any other B2B company. It's value-added services. What are the value-added services that we provide? One big one is around marketing and thought leadership and helping them figure out the future of payments and the future of brand building with the consumers that they're trying to reach. We in marketing play a big role in that. I do personally myself, and that impacts the deals very directly, that what we do in marketing appears on those contracts. So I mean, I could explain more,
but to be fair, you're giving thought leadership advice about how to use these capabilities, and is that fair?
It goes beyond that. It's all around how to do their payment strategy and then their marketing.
But I heard you say top of funnel, bottom of funnel. That sounds awfully close. I'm just going to say Shani.
So the bottom of the funnel piece is we have this Visa checkout product that when we drive acquisition for it, our merchants get benefit. They get higher payment volume. They love it.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Shani, how about you?
So we have two. I think there's the intangible, where we did a search to see against our 4 top competitors, how many times did people say the word love and hate with each of them versus how many times did they say it with us. And we had more mentions of love. So we know that there's an emotional connection that we can create with potential users and existing users, and we do that through, what we call moments of delight. And then there's the more objective, where we can track the number of people who have been, we drive from social to the blog, and then from the blog to our sign-up pages. And we can track the number of people that have gone through that. We can also track the number of people that we sent directly to sign-up pages. So I think that we can show direct revenue, but I'm actually trying to take a step back and focus more on the top of funnel, because I feel like it's a more efficient use of time and a more effective channel for that. Because like we've been talking about, you could use social for everything. You could force every executive to be on social. You could use social to drive direct revenue. But I think like you were mentioning, you have to be really thoughtful about what's the most effective use of time and money. And I think for us, the most effective use of social is in ensuring that more people are saying love with Dropbox and that we're not seen as a commodity than trying to drive that person straight to the end of the funnel.
Can I add one?
Yeah, please do, Rob.
Just to this very quickly. Very direct way it's done. I'm not a practitioner, but I provide software that's used by thousands of practitioners, so I see this a lot. USAA, same session login ID. People who come to the USAA community buy more. They have direct relationship between content that people see from other people who had similar life experiences, bought policies from USAA, and the eventual purchase, same session ID. HP, through social lead generation, finds that people will talk about amazing enterprise servers in their enterprise division, provide a huge source of leads to people who want trusted advice from others like them. We know that through ratings and reviews. That's what we look at Amazon. It's also true in the enterprise world. And I just want to tie this back. It's metrics like this that is how you get your executives and your CEO involved. And so my view on the state of the state for practitioners is that not enough people are focused on the serious metrics that a CEO cares about. And in the end, it's how am I going to make money, how am I going to retain my employees, and how am I going to not get fired? Right? Those are the things that people care about. And as part of that, maintaining your position is about extending your brand, maintaining the loyalty of your customer base and your employee base, and continue to drive that forward. If you can tie those metrics back, people will take it seriously. They'll consider it part of their dashboard, and that's the key. How do I get social engagement onto the dashboard of a CEO, CMO, CFO? And when the CFO says, hey, I can actually create these experiences that drive more effective lead generation and conversion, I'll look at that as part of the series of things that I want to invest in, and I myself will get more active on social.
Okay, next question.
My name is Vanessa, and I am in charge of marketing at my small company. We have about 7 employees. And my question is kind of similar. I was recently told that marketing only spends money and we don't make money. And part of that has to do with social, in the sense that I just implemented this new system where we can track the original touch point that our customer first engaged with us. And so far, we have maybe one purchase based on initial social media touch point. So the executives have concluded that social media is pointless. We haven't had any sales based on it. And I've been trying to convince them that I'm using social to educate, to introduce our customers to our product. How do I convince them to do this?
Okay. Well, ouch.
So it's about winning, serving, and retaining. I happen to believe, I tend to agree with your executives. I don't think it's going to help you win much, but it's all about, and Geoffrey used the term engagement, it's really about how you're going to serve and how you're going to engage them, how you're going to retain and serve them. Part of the power in the age of the customer is the customer now can critique you and can also receive critique. 87% of car purchases in the United States now are preceded by a look at all of the social media and information about cars. So I think your executives are right. They're half right, but you're half right. It's about after you get them, how you'll retain, how you'll serve.
And particularly in the as-a-service economy, as we're going more and more, it's like, churn is the cholesterol of the service business, right? You have to manage your churn. And social, it seems to me, is detecting the social signal and then responding to it. Seems like right at the heart of that problem.
It's like Domino's Pizza had crappy pizza. You know that whole story, right? And they used social as a way to engage all their customers to improve the pizza. And that actually drove their share like 5-6 points.
So next question.
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm Kirti Kalyan. I'm professor of marketing at Santa Clara University. So professors ask stupid questions.
Good, yeah.
Heads up right there. All this conversation about social is very interesting, but I remember early, and by the way, I'm a big Dropbox user.
Yes!
Big drop, one of the earliest, by the way. And
Thank you for being a Dropbox.
Lots of Visa cards in my pocket.
Yeah.
Thank you. Would you like some water?
Would you like a customer experience index?
My wife uses them. She's on the catalog list in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, she gets mail from catalogers in Europe.
To the question.
I love it. Whatever your question
here's the
is,
question.
yes.
Do you guys use social for sourcing product ideas? I remember Dropbox used to have a polling function, and then it seemed to have disappeared. I gave them a bunch of input about features, it went away. So is that feasible? And here's the issues I see around it. It's unclear that the social audience that engages with the company is actually representative of the company's base. You have extreme people. People who really love you, people who really hate you. The middle is missing. So where are we on that? It'd be useful to get some feedback.
Yeah, I think yes on all the things. So a long time ago, I did social media for PlayStation, and PlayStation started a community that allowed people to submit ideas. And the reason why they did that is originally on the PlayStation blog, people just kept submitting their feature requests, and they wanted to be able to take those things that were sort of unrelated to the blog post and bring them into another space and create community around that idea giving. There were so many legal implications of that, and Starbucks has done it, Dell has done it. I think that's why a lot of companies are careful about taking ideas from social. You have to put some safe guardrails around it. So for Dropbox, we do it in a couple different forms. We have a bug bounty where we encourage people, like especially developers and hackers, to find the holes in the system and then submit them to us, and they get paid money for that. So we want, we're not necessarily going to be able to find every vulnerability, but the community can. And so we encourage them to participate in our bug bounty program. We also have forums. So on the forums, which sounds like there's going to be something here, on the forums, people are able to have...
You heard it here first.
Don't tell anyone.
You're right.
So on the forums, people are able to submit that kind of feedback, which is a little different from social. So we take it passively. We're not encouraging people to give us that feedback, but if they proactively want to post it on the forums, we do keep it there.
Okay. Next question.
Hi, Judith Schwartz from To The Point. So I work with a lot of utilities, some of which are municipal utilities, some of which are investor-owned utilities that are very highly regulated. And I love the idea that you're talking about, and it's making me think of all kinds of ways that you could get people involved. But my question for you is, what about markets where, let's say you get a lot of different opinions, some of which are going to be mutually exclusive, or some of which the regulators, even if it's a fabulous idea, might not let you do it. What happens when you can't execute on even a good idea that people submit? How do you say that, give the explanation for that without disappointing them or making them angry at you when there's some other thing, so that it doesn't sound like you're just making excuses?
Rob?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, utilities is one of our fastest growing verticals right now, and I'll tell you what, it's around the whole Internet of Things, smart appliance movement now, so utilities don't want to be cut out of that game. And their view is, if we can create experiences and devices that are going to help people be more efficient in energy management, that's an opportunity for sharing best practice and building brand loyalty that I never had when my exclusive relationship was your utility bill. But now I'm in a conversation with you about something that's a big ticket item that makes you feel good about yourself and the environment when you do it more effectively, and is going to be a part of the home of the future. And that's how regulated industries have to approach it. There are topics around, for pharmaceutical companies, it's the same thing. I can't give you direct advice over social and community on which drug to take unless I'm licensed to do that. But I can host conversations about wellness programs, about effective therapies that people have implemented. And part of this age of the customer, I believe, is the expectation that people are going to be there and present as brands to host those kind of conversations. So there's lots of it going on today, and utilities are now very much in this kind of disintermediation cycle that financial services are in. They're in the same position. They don't want the Ness of the world to cut out the relationship that you have with your utility company. They have the right to own that relationship as much as any device company does, and they want to be there. And that's the path they're going to go.
One of the most active group of clients that we have now is utilities. Strangely enough, you think they're totally regulated, they can't move, but they're very, very, very interested in the age of the customer and how they have to transition.
You know, and just one small build is, because we're in a highly regulated industry, is we find opportunities to have conversations, but we do them in a guided fashion. And that's what really helps. So we may narrow the focus, explain why it's a narrow focus, but people who love us or love our brand or love the topic typically then understand that, and then they see, oh, we're helping solve a problem that can get implemented. And that means more upfront work, but it helps.
Okay, next question. These are great.
Good question.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Anne from SAP, and I run a global network with 3,000 universities in 9 countries. And my audience, my customers, is faculties, and it is millions of students all over the world. So I found out very quickly the way for me to communicate, to have a conversation, is via social. So listen to you guys, very confident. I'm very confident in what I think I need to do on social, but every single day I'm scared that do I really do it right? So I have 3 questions. The first question is, I want to hear about the team. What I do, my whole social concept is crowdsourced out to around 30 young people around the world. So I want to understand the people behind you, because, sorry, you're probably the same age I am, a little bit older, some of you. So how are you on top on social, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, how do you know that you're doing the right thing? Everything I heard until now, I knew. Not that I thought I knew, so get to know something more, but how do you know that this is the right thing to do? And how do you find a new thing? I love you talk about what is going to happen in the next 24, 12 months. But how do you know that it is Snapchat? It is whatever it is that you need to do. What is the next big thing? And thirdly, how do you know that you drive social correctly, whatever you are in the United States, China, India, where you are around the world? So 3 questions. The team, how do you know that it's the right way you do on social? And thirdly, how do you deal with being a global company dealing with social?
Okay, let's just take any one of the three, and maybe we'll spread it across the thing. I think the global one might be an interesting one to start with. Maybe Shiv, I'll ask you to do that. So China versus U.S. versus Germany versus Brazil.
So the voice of the brand, especially around service, that's managed decentrally in the market. So it's a marketer sitting in Shanghai that will manage the brand's voice in WeChat. It's not someone sitting here in San Francisco. What we do, however, is we've invested massively in training all our marketers and communicators around the world on the brand and how to play in social. Don't mind the word play, but how to participate in social. And that's helped tee it up. The second piece we do, which is massively important to us, is we have a very strong governance model and a social media management platform with very strong workflows, which provides all the right checks and balances. And that's how we have this global, local model working together.
Okay. What about team?
So the way that we're structured is we have 3 full-time employees. I focus on everything related to corporate and crisis. One person on my team focuses on things related to the individuals who use Dropbox, and then one person who's focused on the teams or Dropbox business users. And then when we work with folks in the regions, we don't have any full-time social media people regionally, so we have these people who are sort of like anointed as social media practitioners, either in comms or in marketing, and we're essentially using a lot of the same principles there.
But you have, her concern was maybe my team in my company isn't as clued into social as it needs to be?
Because we're old, I remember.
And she was referring to you, by the way.
Yeah, no, I get it. My spring chicken days are.
I have not fallen off the chair yet, so I'm there. I'm working on it. Go ahead.
Connect me with AARP, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we're lucky we have a very young workforce at Dropbox.
I know you do.
They do not waste a second to tell me when we're missing opportunities. They want us to be on Snapchat, but we're trying to be very selective about saying, where are our customers regionally, which regions are our customers in, and which platforms are our customers on, or our target customers that aren't yet in the system. Okay. So that's how we focus.
So for Rob and George, I'm going to do the third one, which is best practices. I think the question was, gosh, how do you know what's best practices? You know, there's not a lot of established lore here yet. So how would someone in SAP say, look, I need to be in touch with best practices?
Can I say something which probably is very controversial, and no one in the room is going to agree with me. But
that's your strength. That's your strong suit.
A lot of analysts at Forrester are not going to agree with me on this. But social feels to me very like 2012-ish.
Okay.
It was like a big topic 3 years ago. I think a lot of social is just crap now.
Okay.
I mean, Twitter's kind of melting down. I was on LinkedIn today. It just sucks at all the ads and stuff. It just feels. And again, this may be just me, but it is an element of customer experience in winning the customers. But we were over relying on it 3 years ago.
So what?
Plus, my kids are out of Facebook.
Yeah,
they do not use Facebook.
No,
they're all using Yik Yak. They're all using other networks. They do not. The fastest growing demographic on Facebook now is 53-year-old women.
Yeah. Okay. So,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I was going to say, go.
So I just think we don't overplay our hands here.
I want to stay with you though. But so what I hear, the way I would have decoded what you said is the first generation of social is passing its sell-by date, but I hear it being replaced by a different kind of. I don't think social. It's being social on a digital world is decreasing. I think it's increasing.
We call this POSO at Forrester, which is post-social.
Yeah, but
it's the next wave.
But the post-social phenomenon is an edge of the states phenomenon. It's the blue states on the East Coast and the West Coast. Silicon Valley finds things are post 12 to 18 months after the first wave of startups. But the rest of the world is still trying to figure out how to implement systems that manage customers who, whether it is Snapchat or WeChat or Kik or whatever it is, they're hanging out in those places and they're not on email and they're not on traditional banner advertising. And so the proliferation of networks only makes the problem for a company worse. And so the best practice issue, I wish I could say, well, just do these 3 things and you got some free consultation here. The problem is, it's like saying, how do I implement a finance system?
How do I implement an ERP system? How do I put in place a CRM system? These are major future, to use a Geoffrey Mooreism, systems of engagement that will have practices and disciplines and expertise and ways of doing it. And the thing is that your company, and I know SAP is doing this, has to invest in this as a discipline. What you're hearing here are, these are practitioners who've developed years of a discipline in managing a system that didn't exist 5, 6 years ago. It wasn't even something that you thought about. And so now everyone says, oh, CRM, of course, Salesforce Automation and Service Cloud. Those things didn't exist 10 years ago. So that's now become sort of routine. It's a line item, but these other systems, they're not a line item, even though I've got this massive problem and I need to get my executives on it. So the practice evolves when we collectively push our organizations to say there's a new system of engagement that has to be built to handle the extreme expectations, the age of the customer, the fact that people do business differently, the fact that nobody uses email clients anymore, that Facebook Messenger is my primary integration point for instantaneous service. Nobody's built that way. It's all add-ons and sloppy add-ons today. And so that's where I think the future has to go. Otherwise, we're going to still be sitting here saying, God, this thing is like post-social, but it's still such a pain in the, because I can't get it right. And that's what I see.
So, I just want to say I agree with Geoffrey's perspective, which is that the behaviors are here to stay, and they're scaling up. The world has changed. It's not going back. The platforms may come and go, but the social behavior, we're seeing that manifested in new ways every day. That's one thing. The second thing I would say is, I'm a simple practitioner, so I look at usage on the platforms, what I see day in and day out. Facebook's not slowing down across all demographics. Snapchat with the teen demographics in the US is off the charts. WeChat is off the charts in Asia. WhatsApp, and one can argue whether messaging is social or not, is going like crazy. Instagram has doubled in the last 2 years. So while it may not be cool anymore to talk a lot about social because we've all lived through those years, the people are there.
Yeah.
And I have to deal with where people are.
Okay. Two more questions. Who's it? Okay?
Hi, can you hear me? Donnie Weinstein from Domo. I manage our online customer communities. First of all, great panel. Thank you for coming. Geoffrey, I got to see you about 20 years ago when I started my previous career at HP.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes. So a couple questions for Shani. If you could provide sort of an overview, high level of platforms you're using today to track the great work you're doing, and maybe talk to how you manage it differently for North America, Western Europe versus Asia, especially when we're dealing with other platforms like WeChat. And then a side question for Shiv is, I spent a year at Verifone in the HP days. Are they still a relevant player in your space? Thank you.
Wow.
Okay, so the tools that we use. I mentioned Sysomos for listening.
Say it again.
Sysomos. Sysomos.
Sysomos.
Not to be confused with syzygy, the alignment of 3 celestial beings, and the last word in the S's of the dictionary. Thank you. So we use Sysomos for listening. We use Sprout for publishing. We use Spark for the real-time responding to people. And we use the native platforms to collect the data. I would say we're probably behind in the tool set for measurement. We're going in manually and pulling everything out. And we have just this gigantic Excel spreadsheet where we created our own dashboard.
Good. Okay.
And what else do we use?
Spark, Sysomos.
Google Analytics to track people who originate from social. We use tracking codes on most of the content that we share.
And then the
only shameless plug I'll say, if you don't want to use 17 disparate tools, come to Lithium.
Yeah, that's right. The shameless plug. Yeah, okay, boom, boom. All right, good work.
I will say this.
Okay. Please use your Visa cards. I was feeling left out.
And improve your customer experience index when crossing the chasm. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No offense. Like, we've looked into a lot of the tools that are all-in-one, but for us, each of the individual tools we use have served us better than any of the collective tools. And so for that reason, we've stuck with having this fragmented tooling. And I could see a future where that changes. I think especially if we ever get to a size that Visa has, we would need to from the governance perspective. Luckily, we're only 3 people, so we can work across.
So, and point products, by the way, do often lead the way before suites. The quick question on the North America versus EMEA versus Asia. Any things about how you're trying to manage across those very different worlds?
So we try to get everybody onto the same tools if they have capability to service the other social platforms. We are most advanced in North America, so I'd probably defer to Shiv because I think you guys are way more advanced than we are.
And Verifone.
Relevant? So firstly, we use Domo.
Yeah, Domo.
Great platform.
Yeah.
He's from Domo, if no one picked up on that. I want to give him a shout out. So we do look to standardize, and we are standardizing on the same tools around the world. We use the Sprinkler platform. And then in terms of how we do things in the other markets, it's the simple stuff. It's really about hyper communication, hyper collaboration, everyone being on the same system with the same workflow, the same governance, and getting on the phone together. Like twice a week, I do these 10 p.m. calls, but they move us forward so much. And then I was on the road flying.
Now I'm going to do last question, then I'm going to ask each of you guys to have a last thought. I'm going to start with Shiv, and I'll work back to George. So, but last question first.
Hi, my name is Esther Szabo, and I come from Central Eastern Europe. I am based in Budapest, and I worked for GE for 20 years. And I have been going through this whole digital transformation. So the company even changed its tagline. It's now a digital industrial company. So I know how much American business can help other parts of the world to find where to go to. And I was shocked by the number, what you said, that 2% of the 100 biggest companies know where, or have done a good transformation, digital transformation. So I would like to know who is going to lead this transformation in America, and America can help the rest of the world, or CEOs in the rest of the world, to make that transformation.
So George, who do you see maybe as some of the American companies that you think are going to catch this next wave and are going to be the iconic companies, the Apple of the next wave kind of idea?
Well, are we talking about technology companies, or are we talking about companies that do customer well?
Both.
Both? So the ones that do customer well are actually kind of boring companies. I mean, USAA, you all know USAA. Well, they're pretty kind of sleepy, but they're inside. If you go inside, they're revolutionary. Geico, a very sleepy company, but you go inside, they have religion and they have culture. So it's companies that they've made the customer the protagonist in their stories.
Has Amazon done that?
Yes, I think absolutely. I don't know if you all have used Alexa, but I put that in my bathroom because my wife doesn't want technology around.
But then she hears Alexa's voice, doesn't she?
She does
worry?
hear Alexa's voice, yeah. It's just extraordinary what that thing is. That makes Siri look 1990-ish. So it'll be companies that are not, you don't read in Fortune magazine, you don't have but these quiet revolution companies are really driving the revolution in customer. Companies like Geico or USAA. Yeah. So you got to finely tune or be a Forrester client, and we'll tell you who you are.
Okay, I'm going to close now, and then we'll have a chance to thank the panel. But I just would like you to kind of last thoughts. If you sort of, Shiv, I'm going to start with you. Just one last thought to perhaps share with the folks here. I think there's a real interest in, how do we make this part of our success package going forward? Any last words of advice or observations on the challenge?
I think we're in a fascinating time, and my 2 cent suggestion would be is, anchor everything in the customer of today, but in your product propositions of tomorrow. And if you strike that balance, you can do amazing things. And what I mean by that is, I actually am incredibly impressed by the guys down the street at Tesla, where they don't need any marketing because they have such a phenomenal product proposition that's set in the future, but for the customer of today. They know what the customer of today is missing and what they want. So as we think about the future, that's what I would suggest. The only other thing I would say is if you're in a large organization or a small organization or a 7-person company or whatever it may be, you can actually have a much greater impact than you may believe at first, and don't hesitate. Yeah.
Cool. No fear.
Yeah.
The T-shirt. Shani?
I would say don't think of social as separate from the rest of what you're doing in your business. If you know you have a business challenge that you're trying to affect through sales or other channels, social could probably help you out in there. But I would caution against forcing social into every solution. Use it where it makes sense and get a couple points on the board and show your executives whatever you think motivates them, and then parlay it into something more, into something more, into something more. I don't think social has to be everything to everyone. I think it just has to solve what business problems you already have.
Okay. Rob?
I think it starts with the recognition that the customer has changed massively. The way they want to interact has changed, and that needs to drive brands today and companies to start thinking about this more seriously. And I think the interesting thing is we've had social and community technology and practices for 4 or 5 years, and people have not gone very far with it yet. And I think the problem with that is that the whole next generation of customers, the millennials and below, who will be the majority of the buying centers of every product, are natively trained to interact in ways that brands are not ready for them to interact. And unless that change happens, we're going to cycle through a whole new Fortune 500. And it's going to be 500 new companies. So if you're representing any of those companies here, I think it's Y2K level urgency right now to make it happen. And we need to see more and more of these discussions, practitioners sharing best practices, and everybody understanding it's a discipline that's here to stay.
Great. And George?
So two stories. One is I was in Japan maybe 10 years ago, and I was in Kyoto, and I got to a hotel back in Tokyo very late, like 2 a.m. in the morning. I had to leave at 6 a.m. the next morning. And I love the yukata, the yukata, that robes you wear. And so I called room service, said, can I get one? They said, yes. And I'm not kidding, 2 minutes. This was 2:30 in the morning. A butler with a perfect bow tie, and he had 2 of them wrapped perfectly in bow, just handed them to me. That's omotenashi, right?
Yeah, it sure
so,
is.
And then I actually am in the process of ordering a Tesla, and you brought up Tesla, but the whole experience is just, it's so, they know they're playing chess with me, like the omotenashi. They know what I want next, and I get a call. They're just right there. They know they're anticipating me perfectly. But this is kind of what Rob said. This is an existential moment for companies. A lot of us don't know that yet, but it truly is. Existential moment. Many companies will go out of business because they don't get the customer right. This is the challenge of the day.
Yeah. So my takeaway from this is this interaction we just had around social at the end, and I realized that we've used the word social as a label, which is actually blocking our understanding of what social actually is. Because business cannot not be social. I mean, it has to be social. And historically, we did it in person. The problem is the venue of social has now moved to digital. That's inescapable. So you have to be present socially in the digital world. And we don't have a lot of protocol for that. But the competition that George and Rob were referring to, this existential competition, the customer has now become the scarce ingredient in our economy. It is no longer the supply. It's not the product, it is not the service, it certainly isn't the media that's scarce. It's the customer that's scarce. And there's a Darwinian competition that's going to go on for who's going to be able to actually secure that relationship. And it has to happen in the digital venue, and it has to be a social experience. So we have to figure it out. So would you please join me now in thanking our panel? Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Good.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives with us. We appreciated everything you said, except for the pitching. Even if you did pitch, you still get a speaker T-shirt.
Pitch.
Thank you very much for being here. A recording of this program will be available on the YouTube Churchill Club channel within the next 24 to 48 hours, and you will find other recordings of most of our programs there as well. Our next program is May 25th, the 18th annual Top 10 Tech Trends, one of our most popular events of the year. We hope you'll join us for that. Thank you, Lithium. Thank you, audience. You've been wonderful. Good night.